Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. It is January 16th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon. Check out this very weak, subtle frontal system moving across some of the area here. It's barely even breaking up some of the lower cloud activity there. It doesn't have much of a punch with it. It's kind of the leading edge of this Arctic air. There's some strong winds occurring across Montana as we go through the day to day out of the west, and that's eventually going to turn northerly as we get a cooler air mass mainly moving east of the Rockies, but some of that is going to leak out into portions of the Pacific Northwest. We're going to get a bit chilly here, and hopefully we'll get enough wind to stir up some of these lower clouds, especially through the Seattle metro and some of the Willamette Valley here as well in eastern Washington. You guys know what I've been talking about here over the last few days. It has just been socked in here across some of the Puget Sound. And so I'm kind of waiting to see when that is going to clear. But if we take a look right now, you can see maybe it trying to stir it up a little bit, but you can still see it's out there across some of Port Townsend, Kitsap Peninsula. Look at eastern Washington. It is just kind of locked in there. Again, the Willamette Valley, Oregon coast actually pretty locked in today as well. Maybe some clearing there for the northwest Washington coastline. A few very light showers associated with this extremely weak frontal system as it continues to push off to the east. And now, of course, as you saw, Spokane talking about that areas of fog here as we go through this morning here. Some visibilities, locally slick roadways. Watch out for that. Just, it doesn't take much on the roadways. Use your low beams. You guys know what to do. Snow showers Thursday afternoon through Saturday. But again, this should not amount to too much here. Maybe an inch or two for some of the higher terrain. Cascade, Idaho Panhandle, as well as this Arctic front is sagging down south across the region. Now, this is looking out towards Missoula, Montana, Arctic cold front outset. You can see as we go through the day tomorrow, you can see as we go through 10 a.m. to 4, 11 p.m. Friday, and then early Saturday morning as it sags down across some portions of Idaho here. But again, the bulk of this cold air mainly going east of the Rockies. There's also the chance for some of the snow as well, probability for 1 inch or greater. As you can see, it's not bad for some areas, and a couple inches of blowing snow can be problematic, and it can even block the roadway at times when it's been blown across. Snowplows don't do much good with blowing snow. So local crosswinds through this evening. This is I-90. You can see Big Timber, and here's Livingston, Montana. So if you're headed off to the east, watch out for some of these peak wind gusts as you go through the day today. And some very cold air arriving east of the Rockies as well. You can see these are the maximum temperature forecast here. I mean, look at this. You're talking about Billings only getting to 9 degrees on Sunday, 10 degrees on Monday. And yeah, some pretty cold temperatures out there. Look at Miles City, 0, -1 for a high on Sunday. And then you can see the minimum wind chill forecast here. Also, you can take a look at Baker, -37, -41. So yeah, pretty darn right chilly out there, but it should be warming up as you go through next Tuesday. Now, taking a wider view here, the last night's European model run. So this is that Arctic front just teasing out a little bit of snow with this here across British Columbia. Cascades a tiny bit as we go through the day today, and you can see some of that sagging across western Montana. Idaho is the cold air, again, locked up east of the Rocky Mountains for the most part. But again, some of that will be leaking back in towards some of the lower elevations here as we go through the next couple of days. But then we scroll off in towards the extended, and you see we go all the way out towards next Tuesday night, and we're not looking at any precipitation across much of the region here. Seattle and Portland largely dry here for the next several days at least. And we'll continue to take a look to see when this pattern is going to change or when we can get some Arctic air up here across Western Canada that is going to get back into the Pacific Northwest, because the models keep showing it and then taking it away through the extended forecast. If we take a look at the GFS 12Z run, this is hot off the presses, running as we speak. Again, teasing out a little bit of that light snow there as this cold air mass sinks off to the east of the Rocky Mountains. Storm track is pointed up into southeast Alaska as we go through hour 87. Look at that Arctic high there, kind of setting up across portions of Alberta, bringing some very cold air all the way down towards Texas over the next few days into early next week. Now, what has been going on here is that we're looking at 30,000 feet, 300 millibars. This is the Pacific Ocean. There's the Hawaiian Islands right there. There's Japan to the far left. There's Washington State to the far right. So again, we are dealing with this ridging very close to the Pacific Northwest. It's keeping that Arctic air off to the east for the most part, and it's keeping the westerlies away too. We've been very dry here for some time now, and this jet extension, the Pacific Ocean jet stream, is active enough across Pacific where it's developing these storms out here across across the Aleutian Islands. And this is more where you need the ridging here. So as long as this troughing is here, it's going to amplify these ridges very close to the west coast of North America, which of course does not allow for much in the way of storm activity, and it keeps Arctic air off to the east. So if I scroll through here, 144 hours, we're just looping through it. You can see ridgy McRidgerson here along the west coast of North America seems very persistent, and it looks like it's going to stay that way as we go through the early portion of next week. So taking a look at the daily 2 minimum temperatures, and as we go through Sunday, look at this 29 for Seattle, some mid-20s out there. So there could be some hard freeze action going on here, even west of the Cascades, and very cold east of the mountains as well. There's Monday morning, Tuesday, still 29 for Seattle. And then, of course, the outlying areas are going to be colder. There's some single digits out there, even showing up for some of the higher terrain as you go east. And then we go through Thursday, Friday, Saturday before we start to modify things a little bit there. High temperatures, you're looking at low to mid 40s here for Seattle, Willamette Valley, southwest Oregon. Probably the warmest of the areas here. But yeah, you can see some pretty chilly daytime highs for the next few days also. Now, looking at visibility in miles, just trying to look here, you can see that the models have been consistently showing some kind of a breakout during the afternoon hours. And it continues to show some of that activity, but you notice it's not that much. So I don't have a lot of confidence just yet that we're going to be clearing out too much. But we do get a bit of that Arctic air that gets to be a bit drier as we go on into the early portion of next week. So there's some hope, and we're going to get some gusty east winds through some of the Cascades, the Oregon, Washington border there, the Columbia River Gorge, which is a sea level gap between western Oregon, Washington, and eastern Washington and Oregon. And of course, some of that flow is going to be coming through the Fraser River Valley. There's another cold air conduit there, the Okanagan River Valley as well, which will be blowing. It's a cold air conduit all the way back into some of central British Columbia. So taking a look at some of those wind speeds, you can see this weak frontal system. There are some gusty westerlies as we go through today and tonight for the east slopes of the Cascades, but then we start to turn things offshore a bit, and then we can see a little bit of that cooler air start to flow down across the Okanagan River Valley. There it is right there. And in fact, let's do this because I want to zoom in a little bit here so we can see a little bit closer. There's that Okanagan River Valley, that cold air conduit. And you can see the outflow coming through the Fraser River Valley here also. And you see the easterlies coming through across the Oregon Cascades. And again, the sea level gap, the gorge is right there. There's the Stampede Gap, and then the Highway 2 or the Stevens Pass Gap is a bit further north than that. So you can see we do have this offshore wind. It's going to be fairly dry. Hopefully, crossing fingers, it is going to be enough to stir up the atmosphere, at least to break up those lower clouds that have just been plaguing a lot of western Washington and the Willamette Valley for the last few days. If I scroll through here, you can kind of see that wind direction change as we go through Saturday morning there, and some of the northeast flow across eastern Washington. So if we look out into the extended forecast, this is 5,000 feet. We scroll off into the extended. So this is just kind of taking a look at February again. You can see we're not dealing with much Arctic air at all through the end of January. And then we go into February, and you see it continues to show some very cold air getting across Western Canada. But you see how far this is out in the forecast. It's just looking at tea leaves. It's just a signal off in the distance here. Will this actually verify? Who knows? But it does continue to show it. So there's always hope through the extended forecast. And February's can be snowy here in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, we'll just continue to monitor that and see when it does get closer. But it's not a terrible signal right now. Now looking at the 6 to 10 day though, you got the kind of the mixed signal here across the west coast. 6 to 10 day precipitation below normal. Shouldn't be a surprise. 8 to 14 day above, below, mixed bag. And then we've got this for the 8 to 14 day. I don't know about that. We'll see if we're going to get near normal during this time frame also. And this is something interesting. This is the first half of January. A lot of the west has been above average, especially California, but also Oregon, Washington, portions of Idaho, and western Montana. You can clearly see east of the Rockies, though, the temperature anomaly, the mean temperature anomaly, is well below normal for this time of year. If we take a look at percent of average precipitation, so you can see there's some areas of western Washington, like Seattle, metropolitan area, 50 to 70% of normal. And you can see the yellow is 75 to 100. But look at eastern Washington, Oregon, that's not bad. But again, this is just percent of average precipitation. I'm going to show you that and how you can kind of, trick people with statistics a little bit. So if you take a look at total precipitation, you see it's not much that's fallen over there, but that's still above average for this time of year. So it's not like you were looking at a whole bunch of precipitation out there, generally speaking. And you can see that Seattle, 10 to 20 inches, but that's still below normal for this time frame. That's when the water year starts, by the way, on October 1st. Now, average temperature in degrees, you can see California, of course, the southwest desert areas are going to be warmer, and then you go to the interior areas, interior mountain west here is going to be cooler, and you can see western Washington, western Oregon during this time of year, is generally warmer than the interior sections, which are a bit colder, and you can see the temperature graph down there on the bottom. But this is the average temperature departure from average, and as you can see, virtually all of these states here are overwhelmingly above average so far since October 1st. And, very few little small areas are below average. The overwhelming majority has been 2 to 4, even 4 to 6 above average here across a lot of the Intermountain West and much of California as well. And strangely enough, the very sliver there of some of the Los Angeles metro, the coastal areas, have actually been a little below normal during this time frame. So anyway, the hunt and the search for Arctic air continues. Weather models continue to show some of it bunching up, and then it kind of takes it away and dumps it off to the east, and that's what's going to happen here. And in fact, some very interesting weather is probably going to happen all the way down into Texas. Some very cold weather pours all the way down the east side of the Rocky Mountains out there. So we'll just continue to wait for our turn. We'll continue to wait to see when these westerlies are going to return, when we're going to get our more classic storms back here into the Pacific Northwest. How long will these low clouds hang out? I'm hoping that when we start to get this offshore flow that it is dry enough to stir up the atmosphere a little bit, but it can still be kind of tricky because once you get these winds in here, they can be very slow moving. I'm always skeptical when I see weak north winds coming down the Puget Sound and then I see the models clearing out some of the visibility here, because it tends to be much more difficult to scour out the lower levels of the atmosphere than what the models want to show. So anyway, we'll see how that goes with the Arctic outflow or the very modified Arctic outflow, I should say, as we go on into the weekend early next week. But we'll revisit that again tomorrow. We'll take a look at all the forecasts again. Hope you guys are having a good day. Otherwise, click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.